Go. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon if you're watching it in Boston Avenue on Friday afternoon. Then my assembly this week is all about the big Garden Birdwatch. Now, I wonder if any of you out there actually know what this is about, because I'll be really honest. Last night when I was planning assembly, I thought, I don't actually know very much about birds. Maybe I have to ask Mrs. Borry. She's our in-house bird expert. But I have learned a lot about birds for this assembly, and I'm actually quite interested in them now. So, do you know, can you see here in the corner, it says RSPB. I wonder if any of you know what the RSPB actually is. If you do, put your hand up now and tell the rest of your class before I go to the next slide. So the RSPB was actually created such a long time ago in 1889. And this lady here, you can see her name is Emily Williamson. She created what was called the Society for the Protection of Birds, and it had one aim, and that was to fight the fashion at the time, which was to take bird feathers and plumes from exotic birds, to bring them to in this country, to then put them onto people's clothes. And because people were doing that and killing all the birds to take their feathers, actually some birds were being forced into extinction. And she said, this isn't good enough. Like, we shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be taking God's creatures and using them for something that we might wear once or twice and never again. So she decided to create this society. Now, her society was actually formed with a group that were all women. So her all women movement was born because they were really frustrated that the British Ornithologists Union, you can see some of them in there, were all male, and they weren't acting on the issue. They weren't actually doing anything. They were going, oh yeah, look at these lovely birds. You can use their feathers, it's fine. They weren't standing up for those creatures. So this lady and another group of ladies around her decided to be the change, which is brilliant. That's something that should really inspire us. So Emily's efforts soon gathered pace. People started to get really excited, and they decided to stand up alongside her. And so she joined forces with two other ladies. One was called Etta Lemon and one was called Eliza Phillips. And they started to build this whole movement. And in 1904, they had so much popularity and so many people wanting to work with them that the society was actually awarded a royal charter. How important is that? Which made the name change. That is why it is now called the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, which is where RSPB comes from. Now, in 1965, the RSPB started a whole new branch of their organisation, which was actually called the Young Ornithologists Club. And Mrs. Borry has done Ornithology Club for enrichment, and children in Year 4 have been going out and learning about birds and doing lots of bird watching. So that organisation, or that branch of the charity, is now known as Wildlife Explorers, and it's for young people. And in 1979, it actually had a special part of the Blue Peter show. So they were always involved with Blue Peter. And actually that is when they launched the big Garden Birdwatch, which is what my assembly is all about today. So this is an annual event, and it's about us going into our gardens and counting the birds. And it's now the world's largest citizen science project. And it provides a valuable snapshot to our bird life and seeing how our bird life is doing over time. So how exciting is that, that actually all of us can be part of something that's so important. As it says here, it's the largest citizen science project. So that means that anyone can get involved with it and be part of this huge project, which is trying to do something so important. So as I said, well, actually, is it? Well, you've got some days. So between the 28th and the 30th of January, you need to go in your garden, or maybe if you've got a balcony you can look out, or a window you can look out of, or if you've got a park that you live nearby, you're going to go to that place where you can see the birds, and you're going to count how many you see in 1 hour. That's very specific. And we know when we do science experiments, we have to do some things very, very carefully. So one of the measures in this experiment is that actually we have to do it for only 1 hour between the 28th and the 30th of January. It doesn't matter when in the day you do it, but you've only got to do it for 1 hour. Now, I wonder, before we talk about this a bit more, how many types of birds can you actually name? There's a bit of a challenge I set myself last night, and I'll be honest, I was not very good at it. So I wonder, how many types of birds can you name? Do a little go in your class for a moment and see how many you can get together. So I wonder if some of these birds came up on your list. So I did a Google search, And you can see at the bottom, this image did come from the RSPB, so it is a credible source of some common birds that we might see in the UK. And here they are here. I wonder if you had some of these on your name. Like blackbird I named, and magpie I was really good at, and pigeon, although I wasn't very specific between the wood pigeon and the feral pigeon. There are two different types. I was really good at sparrow and the great tit and the blue tit, but I tell you what, I had no idea about this, what was it? The carrion crow. I knew what a crow was, but I didn't know it had this other name in front of it. And I totally forgot about a greenfinch. So I wonder how many of you got some of these on this list. By the end of this assembly, we're all going to be absolute bird watching experts. Now, the results of last year's bird watch. I wonder if you can think what the top 10 birds were in 2021. Now, I was very good because I did actually manage to get number 1 and number 2 when I was doing this last night, but I was not very good at getting the others in ranked order. So I wonder if you can work out as a class, maybe what you think the top 4 might have been. Then I will reveal in a moment. Are you ready? Right, drum roll, everybody. I want to hear a drum roll across the school for the top 10 birds from 2021. Here they were. So number 1 was the house sparrow. Number 2 was the blue tit. 3 was a starling. Used to have starlings in the loft when I was growing up as a little girl. Number 6 was the robin, everyone's classic Christmas bird. We all love those, don't we? We love a robin, but actually they're not just for Christmas, they're around all the time. And then number 10, the magpie. So I wonder how many of you got the top 5 in your class. Now, what happens after the results are collated? Because that's something I wanted to know. I thought it's really great that we collect all this data. What actually happens to the data? What is it used for? So the RSPB actually use the statistics, they use the data they have got to help them find out more about the health and welfare of the bird species all across the country. And by doing so, they can help start changes where help is needed. So for example, it says that in 2021, they saw a record number of people, millions of people actually enjoyed nature and did this activity. They counted the birds. But while it was a really great year for people doing this in their gardens, it actually wasn't a very good time for birds, because what we found out is that there are fewer birds around, and every year our bird population is going into decline. And this is a really staggering figure. So in the last 50 years, 40 million birds have vanished from the UK skies. How amazing is that? That is astounding to think that in just 50 years, we've actually reduced the bird population in this country by 40 million. Wow. And it's not just birds that are suffering. There's a report that's called the State of Nature report that you can actually read. Has found that around 2/5 of UK species are in decline. And that includes turtle doves, red squirrels, and water voles. So actually what we are learning is that nature really needs us to help it out, because what we are doing and how we are living and how we are behaving is affecting the population of our nature. And I think that is something at St Mary's we really need to consider, because I know that lots of us here really do value God's earth and all the creatures within it. And actually we want to do whatever we can to help that, to help it increase rather than decrease further. So we need to start enjoying nature a bit more, start appreciating nature and valuing nature. And the Big Fun of Birdwatch is a great way to come together with other people, because you can do this with those in your family. You can meet up with your friends and do it for the hour, and sharing that excitement of discovering the natural world. Now, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek of what all the teachers did yesterday after school. You may have seen a few of us. If you were outside for football club, you will have seen all of the teachers at the back of the field at Boston in our forest school. And the teachers had a lovely session with Mrs. Wheatley and Mrs. Baker exploring our forest school area. So doing those activities that you are getting the chance to do as the year goes on, really exploring our natural environment, getting time to engage with it, do different things with it, to really explore and actually appreciating the nature that we have. So that is something that we have been doing as a teaching staff, and it's something that we really hope you will appreciate doing going forward with our forest school and also in our local environment as well. So how do we take part? Just to remind us, you're going to watch the birds around you for 1 hour between the 28th and the 30th of January. You're going to count how many of each species of birds lands on your patch. So wherever it is you're watching, you're going to keep track of how many species of birds land there. And then you can go onto the internet and you can tell RSPB what you saw. So if you go to the RSPB website, you can find a little tick sheet resource to help you tally off what you've seen. And then you can go on there and give them your information. How brilliant is that? It's something that we can all do to make a big difference in seeing what is happening to our population of birds within the UK. So let's take some time for a moment to close our eyes or to read along the prayer with me. Let's take some time to focus on what we've learned and think about how we can take everything from today going forward into tomorrow. Dear God, thank you for the many different kinds of birds that visit our gardens. Please help us to take the time to remember how beautiful they are. Thank you for all the precious things you put on this earth. Amen. Now, there was only one song we could sing today, absolute classic of growing up, If I Were a Butterfly. And I want to hear you singing this all over the school in your loudest and proudest voices. I hope you were inspired by that video at the end there, and I hope you really enjoyed singing along to If I Were a Butterfly, or even If I Were a Bird, in the spirit of today's assembly. So it would be great to see how many of you do the big garden bird watch this weekend. We will put something on the Facebook page so you can show us your photos of you doing it at home or in the park, wherever you choose to do it. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next